The blue planet hung in the darkness of space like a jewel waiting to be discovered. Captain Vexillar stood on the bridge of his ship and watched it through the viewing screen. His skin changed colors slowly as he thought about what would happen next. 3 years had passed since the Galactic Coalition first detected the radio signals coming from this world. 3 years of listening and learning and deciding if these creatures called humans were ready to join the greater community of intelligent species. The ship moved closer to Earth, and Vexillar felt his heart beating faster. He was nervous but also excited. First contact was always a special moment. It meant bringing a new species into the galaxy and sharing knowledge that would change their entire civilization. The Coalition had done this hundreds of times before with other worlds. Most of the time it went smoothly. The new species would be grateful and eager to learn. They would join the Coalition and add their culture to the great mixing of ideas and traditions that made the galaxy so rich and diverse. Vexillar pressed a button on his console and spoke into the communication system. His voice would be translated and sent down to the planet below. The humans had already been contacted through their primitive radio systems. They knew aliens were real now. They knew someone was coming to meet them. A small group of their leaders and scientists waited at a location they called Houston. Vexillar found the name amusing. Every species had such unique ways of naming their places. The ship descended through the atmosphere, and Vexillar watched as the human world revealed itself. Cities of concrete and metal spread across the continents. Roads connected everything like veins in a body. Lights twinkled in the approaching darkness. It looked peaceful enough. The humans had shown no signs of aggression toward his ship. Their military forces had stayed back as requested. Everything seemed to be going according to the standard first contact protocols. The ship landed in a large open area near several buildings. Vexillar could see crowds of humans gathered behind barriers. They held up devices that flashed with light. Their faces showed expressions of wonder and fear and curiosity all mixed together. Vexillar smiled in the way his species smiled. These humans looked harmless. They were small compared to many species. They had no visible natural weapons like claws or fangs or venom glands. Their bodies seemed soft and vulnerable. The airlock opened and Vexillar stepped out onto the human world. The gravity was comfortable. The air was breathable with minor adjustments from his suit. A group of humans approached. They walked on 2 legs just like many species did. They wore simple coverings over their bodies. One of them stepped forward with his hand extended in what the research team had explained was a gesture of greeting. Jake Morrison had been chosen carefully by his people. He was a pilot and an astronaut. He had steady nerves and a friendly personality. He was someone who could represent humanity well in this historic moment. When he saw the alien captain emerge from the ship, he felt his heart pounding, but he kept his face calm and welcoming. He walked forward and reached out his hand. Vexillar took the human's hand and shook it gently. The skin felt warm and soft. The grip was firm but not threatening. Jake smiled widely, and Vexillar noticed the white structures in his mouth. Teeth. All species had teeth or something similar for processing food. These looked normal enough. Jake spoke, and his words were translated through the device Vexillar wore. "Welcome to Earth. We are honored to meet you. We have so many questions, and we hope to learn from you." Vexillar responded with formal greetings and explained that Jake had been invited to visit the Coalition ship. He would be the first human to see what the galaxy had to offer. Jake agreed eagerly and followed Vexillar back toward the ship. Inside the vessel, Jake's eyes went wide with amazement. Everything was so advanced compared to Earth technology. The corridors curved in ways that seemed impossible. Lights appeared from nowhere. Doors opened silently at his approach. Vexillar gave him a tour and introduced him to various crew members. There was Pip, who looked like a small furry creature with big eyes. There was Thorn, who seemed to be made of living crystal. There was Sala, who had 6 arms and moved with graceful efficiency. Everyone seemed welcoming. They asked Jake questions about Earth and human culture. Jake answered enthusiastically. He showed them pictures of his family. He explained about human music and art. He talked about the oceans and mountains and forests of his world. The aliens listened with genuine interest. Everything felt wonderful. Then came the mealtime. Jake had brought food from Earth because he wasn't sure if he could eat alien food safely. He sat in the mess hall with several crew members and unpacked his lunch. He pulled out a sandwich and took a bite. The bread was soft. The turkey meat was seasoned just right. The lettuce was crisp and fresh. It was a perfectly normal meal. Korth the Vraxian sat across from Jake and watched him eat. Korth's large eyes blinked slowly. He made a sound that the translator turned into words. You are consuming flesh. You eat dead creatures. Jake stopped chewing for a moment. He swallowed and nodded. Yeah, it's turkey. It's a bird we raise for food. Pretty common where I'm from. Is that weird? The mess hall became very quiet. Jake looked around and saw that every alien was staring at him. Some of them had moved their chairs back slightly. Pip's fur was standing up straight. Salah's arms had frozen in mid-motion. Even Vexillor, who had seemed so calm now, had skin that flickered between different colors. You are a predator species. Pip's small voice came out as almost a squeak. You hunt and kill and consume other living things. Jake laughed because he thought they were joking. Well, humans are omnivores, actually. We eat plants, too. But yeah, we eat meat. Lots of species eat meat, right? He looked around at their faces. Right, Vexillor stood slowly. His voice was careful and measured. We were not informed of this. We studied your transmissions and your culture, but we did not realize humans were predators. This changes many things. We must update our protocols. Jake felt confused. What protocols? Why does it matter what we eat? His smile faded as he saw how serious they all looked. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He lay in the quarters they had given him and stared at the ceiling. Through the walls, he could hear voices. The ship was not built for privacy between species with different hearing ranges. Jake could make out Vexillor talking to someone over a communication channel. The words came through clearly. Yes, High Command. The human is definitely a predator-class species. I am observing Class 7 characteristics at minimum. Forward-facing eyes for tracking prey. Obvious canine teeth for tearing flesh. Admits to consuming other creatures without hesitation or shame. No visible distress at the act of killing for food. Jake sat up in his bed. Class 7, what did that mean? Why did it sound so serious? Vexillor continued speaking. Should we continue with integration protocols? Or should we invoke the predator safety measures? There was a pause while the other person responded. Then Vexillor said something that made Jake's blood run cold. Understood. I will continue observation, but I will be cautious. Very cautious. If the human shows any signs of aggression, we will activate containment immediately. Jake lay back down. His mind raced with questions. The galaxy clearly had strong feelings about predators. Humans had always known they were predators. It was part of their history. Their ancestors had hunted to survive, but Jake had never thought of it as something bad. It was just nature, just the way things were. Now he wondered what the aliens saw when they looked at him. Did they see a person or did they see a monster? The days passed slowly on the ship and Jake noticed everything changing around him. The crew members who had been friendly now kept their distance. When he walked down the corridors, they would press themselves against the walls to let him pass. Conversations would stop the moment he entered a room. Even Pip, who had been so cheerful and talkative, now spoke to him in short, nervous sentences. Her big eyes would dart toward the exits whenever they were in the same space together. Jake tried to act normal, but it hurt. He had come here with such hope and excitement. He had imagined building friendships with beings from other worlds. He had dreamed of sharing ideas and learning about the vast universe beyond Earth. Instead, he felt like a dangerous animal in a cage. The crew treated him politely, but there was always fear in their movements. Always caution in their words. He decided to confront Vexillor directly. He found the captain in his private quarters reviewing data on several floating screens. The captain's skin shifted to a pale, worried color when Jake entered. Vexillor gestured for him to sit, but Jake remained standing. What is going on? Jake's voice was firm. Everyone is treating me like I might attack them at any moment. I came here in peace. I have done nothing wrong. Why are you all so afraid of me? Vexillor's skin rippled with patterns that Jake had learned meant the captain was choosing his words carefully. You must understand, Jake Morrison. The galaxy has rules and systems for everything. One of the most important systems is how we classify species, especially predator species. It determines how we interact with them. It determines what precautions we take. Jake crossed his arms. And where do humans fall in this classification? That is what we are trying to determine. Vexillor touched one of the screens and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. It showed a chart with different levels marked from 1 to 12. Each level had examples of different species and their characteristics. This is the predator classification system. It helps us understand the threat level of carnivorous species. Jake stepped closer to study the display. The lower numbers seemed to represent herbivores with minor aggressive tendencies, species that might defend themselves but posed no real threat. As the numbers increased, the species became more dangerous, more adapted to hunting and killing. Vexillor pointed to the middle ranges. Class 6 through Class 10 are true predators. They hunt other creatures for food. They have natural weapons and hunting instincts. But they also have limitations, physical weaknesses, technological barriers, environmental restrictions. Jake saw images of creatures that looked fierce and deadly. There were beings with massive claws, species with venomous fangs, creatures built for speed and power. He recognized one image. That is a lion from Earth. You have it listed as Class 8. Yes. Vexillor's skin darkened slightly. Lions are powerful and dangerous. They are efficient hunters with strong social bonds, but they cannot build tools. They cannot leave their planet. They are limited by their biology. We can study them safely from a distance. Jake pointed to the higher numbers. What about Class 11? Vexillor hesitated before answering. Class 11 predators are extremely rare. Only 3 species in all of known space have reached that classification. They combine predatory instincts with high intelligence and tool use. They can develop technology and spread to other worlds. We monitor them constantly. We have treaties and restrictions to ensure they do not become threats to peaceful species. And Class 12. Jake felt his stomach tighten as he asked. Vexillor's skin went almost black. Class 12 is theoretical. We have never encountered such a species. The very idea terrifies the Coalition. A Class 12 predator would have everything. Hunting instincts refined over millions of years. High intelligence and creativity. Advanced technology. The ability to adapt to any environment. Pack coordination combined with individual initiative. Most importantly, they would have persistence. The refusal to give up no matter what obstacles they face. Jake swallowed hard. And you think humans might be Class 12? We are conducting tests to find out. Vexillor touched the screen again and files appeared. Files about humans, about Earth, about Jake himself. Everything you do is being recorded and analyzed. Every reaction, every choice, every word. Jake felt angry but also frightened. You have been testing me this whole time. Those games Pip taught me, the medical examinations from Sala, the different foods you offered. All of it was to classify humans. We had to know. Vexillor's voice carried something like sadness. The safety of the entire galaxy might depend on understanding what humans are capable of. Jake sat down heavily. He pulled up the files about humans and began reading. The information was clinical and cold. Forward-facing eyes positioned for tracking prey across long distances. Binocular vision for judging distances when striking. Minimal body hair suggesting adaptation to persistence hunting in hot climates. Bipedal locomotion allowing for efficient long-distance running. Sweat glands enabling cooling during extended chases. The file continued with more observations. Omnivorous digestive system capable of processing almost any organic matter. Opposing thumbs for tool creation and weapon use. Large brain relative to body size indicating high problem-solving ability. Complex language suggesting coordination and planning capabilities. Evidence of pack hunting throughout evolutionary history. Jake read about human psychology next. Reduced fear response in dangerous situations. Adrenaline system that enhances physical performance during stress. Ability to form strong emotional bonds with pack members. Territorial instincts. Competitive nature. Persistence in pursuing goals even when success seems impossible. The file showed human history. Wars spanning thousands of years. Weapons becoming more sophisticated with each generation. Martial arts systems designed to make the human body itself a weapon. Tactical knowledge accumulated and refined through countless conflicts. The ability to turn any object into a tool or weapon. Jake looked up at Vexillor. This makes us sound like monsters. It makes you sound like the most efficient predators the galaxy has ever seen. Vexillor moved closer, but there is something else in these files. Something that confuses us. You also show remarkable capacity for cooperation with other species. You form emotional attachments easily. You have complex moral systems. You create art and music. You care for your weak and elderly. You have empathy. That is what makes us human, Jake said quietly. We are not just predators. We are people. Before Vexillor could respond, an alarm blared through the ship. The sound was loud and urgent. Red lights flashed in the corridors. A voice came over the communication system announcing a hull breach in Section 7. All crew members were ordered to report to emergency stations. Jake and Vexlar ran toward the bridge. Other crew members rushed past them, heading in various directions. The ship shuddered and groaned. Something had punched through the outer hull. Air was escaping into space. Automatic systems were trying to seal the breach, but they were failing. On the bridge, Sala was coordinating the emergency response with her 6 arms moving rapidly across multiple control panels. Thorn is trapped in Section 7. His breathing apparatus was damaged by the impact. He cannot survive without it. The section is unstable. The structural supports are failing. How long does he have? Vexlar's skin flashed through a dozen colors. Minutes at most. Sala's voice was tight with stress. We are preparing a rescue team, but it will take time to get the proper equipment ready. Jake did not think. He did not plan. He simply acted. He ran from the bridge towards Section 7. Behind him he heard Vexlar shouting for him to stop. To wait for the rescue team. To not be foolish. Jake ignored the commands. Someone was dying. Someone needed help. That was all that mattered. He reached the sealed bulkhead that separated the damaged section from the rest of the ship. An emergency suit locker stood nearby. Jake grabbed a suit and pulled it on as fast as he could. The suit was not designed for humans, but it fit well enough. He activated the emergency override and the bulkhead door began to open. The corridor beyond was a nightmare. Twisted metal blocked the passage. Exposed wiring sparked and hissed. The air shimmered where it was being sucked toward the breach. Warning lights painted everything in harsh red shadows. Jake could see Thorn at the far end trapped under a collapsed support beam. The crystalline engineer was barely moving. Jake crawled forward. The metal groaned and shifted around him. Sharp edges tore at his suit, but the material held. Behind him, crew members had gathered at the bulkhead. They were shouting at him to come back, telling him the section could collapse completely at any moment. Jake kept moving forward. He reached Thorn and lifted the beam enough for the engineer to slide free. He pulled a spare breathing unit from the emergency locker on the wall and fitted it over Thorn's face. The return journey was harder. Jake had to half-carry Thorn through the unstable corridor. His muscles burned with effort. His lungs ached. The suit alarms were screaming warnings about micro-tears and pressure loss. Jake pushed forward step by step until hands reached out and pulled them both through the bulkhead. The door sealed behind them just as Section 7 finally collapsed inward. Jake sat on the floor of the corridor breathing hard. His hands shook from the adrenaline draining out of his system. Medical crew members surrounded Thorn, checking his condition and treating minor injuries. The crystalline engineer would survive. Jake had gotten to him in time. The crew members stared at Jake with expressions he could not quite read. It was not just fear anymore. It was something else. Something deeper. Vexlar pushed through the crowd and stood looking down at him. The captain's skin flickered through colors that Jake had never seen before. You ran toward danger. Vexlar's voice was quiet, but every word carried weight. You entered a lethal environment without proper authorization, without proper equipment, without hesitation. Someone needed help. Jake pulled off the damaged emergency suit. Thorn was dying. I could not just stand there. You could have died. Vexlar knelt down to be at eye level with Jake. The section could have collapsed while you were inside. You could have suffocated. You could have been crushed. Do you understand this? Yes. Jake met the captain's eyes. But I did not die. And neither did Thorn. Vexlar stood and spoke to someone Jake could not see. File update required immediately. Human subject displays no appropriate fear response to lethal situations. Shows pack bonding behavior even with non-species members. Willing to sacrifice self for others, including those outside family unit. Classification upgrade necessary. Recommend Class 11 minimum. Possibly higher. Jake felt the weight of those words. The crew members backed away from him again. The brief moment of something other than fear had passed. Now they looked at him like he was even more dangerous than before. The ship received new orders the next day. They would travel to Coalition Station Alpha. It was the central hub of galactic government. A massive structure where representatives from all member species gathered to make decisions that affected trillions of beings. Jake would be evaluated formally. The Coalition Council itself would determine humanity's classification and decide Earth's fate. The journey took 3 weeks. During that time, Jake tried to make the best of the situation. He could not change what he was. He could not make himself less of a predator in their eyes, but he could show them that humans were more than just hunters. He played strategy games with Pip and let her win half the time. He helped Sala reorganize the medical supplies using a more efficient system. He even got Thorn to talk about poetry from his homeworld. One evening, Thorn came to Jake's quarters, the crystalline being moved with a musical tinkling sound. He sat down across from Jake and was quiet for a long moment before speaking. "You are unusual, human Jake." Thorn's translated voice had a thoughtful quality. "You show predator traits clearly. Your eyes track movement constantly. Your body language suggests readiness for action at all times. You analyze threats without conscious thought. Yet you are also gentle. You saved my life at risk to your own." "This is contradictory," Jake smiled. "Not really. Back on Earth, the best people are the ones who protect others. We are dangerous to threats, but we care for our friends. That is what makes someone good. Your entire species thinks this way." Thorn's question was direct. Jake considered carefully. "Not everyone. We have people who only think about themselves. We have people who hurt others for pleasure or profit. But most humans try to be good. We try to protect the weak. We try to stand up against bullies. We teach our children that strength should be used to help, not harm. This is why you confuse us." Thorn leaned forward. "Predators in nature kill to survive. They do not have morality. They do not have choice. You have both, and yet you choose to hunt only when necessary. You choose to protect even those who could be prey." Jake nodded. "That is what being human means. We have the capacity for violence, but we also have the capacity for love. Both are part of us. We get to choose which one wins." Coalition Station Alpha appeared in the viewing screens like a small moon. It was enormous beyond anything Jake had imagined. Thousands of ships from hundreds of worlds docked at its ports. The station itself was a work of art. Curved structures connected by transparent tubes. Gardens visible through the walls where plants from different worlds grew together. Lights that shifted colors to accommodate species with different visual ranges. Jake was escorted through corridors filled with beings of every shape and size. Some walked on legs, some floated, some slithered or rolled or moved in ways Jake had no words for. All of them stopped to stare at him as he passed. Word had spread that a potential Class-12 predator was being brought before the council. Everyone wanted to see the dangerous human. The council chamber was a vast circular room with seating arranged in rising tiers. Representatives from 50 major species filled the space. At the center stood a platform where Jake was directed to wait. Above him floated the Grand Speaker, a being made of living light that pulsed with colors as it communicated. Human Jake Morrison. The Grand Speaker's voice came from everywhere at once. "Your species stands at a crossroads. We must determine if humanity poses a threat to galactic peace and stability. We must decide Earth's future." Jake squared his shoulders. "We do not want trouble. Humans just want to join the community. We want to learn and share and be part of something bigger than ourselves. Your intentions matter less than your nature." The Grand Speaker dimmed slightly. "We have reviewed all data from Captain Vexillar's observations. We have studied your history, your biology, your psychology. We have analyzed countless hours of your transmissions and cultural records." Images began appearing in the air around Jake. Humans hunting across ancient plains. Persistence chasing prey for days until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. Wars throughout history growing more sophisticated and deadly with each generation. Athletes pushing their bodies beyond normal limits. Rescue workers rushing into burning buildings and collapsed structures. Soldiers coordinating in perfect unity during combat. A council member stood. "You are endurance predators. Your species evolved to run prey animals to death over impossible distances. Even injured or tired, you do not stop." Another member rose. "You have persistence beyond logic. You attempt the impossible and often succeed through sheer refusal to quit. You do not accept failure." A third voice joined in. "You form pack structures yet think independently. You cooperate instinctively while also innovating individually. This makes you unpredictable." More voices added observations. "You wage war on yourselves constantly. Every conflict teaches you new ways to kill. You have thousands of fighting styles, endless weapon designs, tactical knowledge refined over millennia. You befriend other species easily. You bond with animals that should be your prey. You adopt creatures into your families and protect them as fiercely as your own children. Your fear response is diminished. You experience excitement in dangerous situations. You seek out activities that risk death for entertainment. You call this fun? You can eat almost anything organic. You adapt to any climate. You survive injuries that would kill most species. You turn every object into a tool or weapon. You have redundant systems in your biology. You can function with damaged organs. You can survive blood loss that would be fatal to others. Your body's fight to live even when logic says you should die. Jake listened to them list everything that made humans human, traits he had always taken for granted, things that seemed normal to him. But hearing them described by species who had evolved differently made him understand how strange humans must seem, how frightening. The grand speaker pulsed brightly and silence fell over the chamber. Human Jake Morrison, after careful analysis and extensive debate, the coalition has reached a conclusion regarding your species classification. Jake held his breath. The fate of Earth hung on whatever came next. Humanity is a Class 12 predator species. The grand speaker's words echoed through the chamber. Gasps and cries of alarm rose from the assembled representatives. Some stood in protest. Others backed away as if Jake might suddenly attack. However, the grand speaker's voice cut through the noise. You are also something we have never encountered before. You are a Class 12 predator with empathy, with conscience, with the capacity for extraordinary compassion alongside your capacity for violence. The chamber grew quiet again. The grand speaker moved closer to Jake until the light was almost touching him. Tell me, human. Why did you save Thorn? You barely knew him. He had shown you no friendship. You gained nothing from his survival. Yet you risked your life without hesitation. Why? Jake did not need to think about his answer. Because he needed help. Because I could help. Because it was the right thing to do, even at great personal risk. The grand speaker's light pulsed with what might have been curiosity. Especially then, Jake said firmly. That is when help matters most. When it is hard, when it costs something, anyone can help when it is easy and safe. Real help happens when you have to sacrifice. The grand speaker's light pulsed with patterns that Jake could not interpret. The council chamber remained silent as everyone waited to hear what would come next. Jake stood on the platform feeling the weight of billions of human lives resting on this moment. Everything his species hoped for depended on what these aliens decided. This is the contradiction of your species. The grand speaker's voice carried a tone that might have been wonder. You are the galaxy's most dangerous predator yet. You are also its most promising protector. You have the capacity to destroy, but you choose to save. You have the instinct to hunt, but you use it to guard. The question we face is which nature will dominate. Will humans be destroyers or defenders? A council member stood abruptly. His species had scales and multiple eyes that all focused on Jake with clear hostility. We cannot take this risk. Class 12 predators should be quarantined immediately. Earth must be isolated until humans evolve beyond their predatory nature. This is the only safe course of action. That could take millions of years. Jake's voice was steady but angry. You would trap my entire species on one planet. You would deny us the stars because you are afraid of what we might become. Better than the alternative. Another council member rose. One Class 12 species loose in the galaxy could destroy everything we have built. Better to contain the threat now than face catastrophe later. More voices joined the argument. Some demanded immediate quarantine with military enforcement. Others suggested supervised integration with strict limitations on human expansion. A few proposed monitoring programs that would track every human who left Earth. One representative even suggested genetic modification to remove humanity's predatory traits entirely. Jake listened to them, debate his species like they were discussing a dangerous animal. Like humans were a problem to be solved rather than people to be welcomed. He felt anger rising but forced himself to stay calm. Losing his temper now would only prove their fears correct. The argument raged for hours. Jake was not allowed to speak. He could only stand and listen as aliens who had never met another human decided whether Earth would be free or imprisoned. Some of the arguments were logical. Some were based on fear. Some seemed to come from species who simply did not like the idea of sharing the galaxy with something more dangerous than themselves. Finally, the grand speaker called for silence. We will adjourn for 3 days. Each member will consider the evidence and prepare formal positions. This decision is too important to rush. We must be certain of our choice. Jake was escorted back to temporary quarters on the station. The rooms were comfortable, but he felt like a prisoner. Guards stood outside his door. Not to keep others out, but to keep him in. He tried to contact Earth, but communications were being restricted. He was allowed to send only basic messages saying he was safe and the talks were continuing. On the 5th day of his confinement, everything changed. Alarms suddenly screamed through the station. The sound was different from the emergency on Vexlar's ship. This was more urgent, more terrifying. Jake ran to his window and saw ships scrambling in every direction. Panic had seized the station. His door burst open and Vexlar rushed in. The captain's skin was flashing colors so rapidly it hurt to look at. "Come with me now. We need you. What is happening?" Jake followed the captain into the corridors. Aliens were running everywhere. Some were crying. Some were frozen in fear. Hostile fleet. Unknown origin. They appeared at the edge of the system and are approaching fast. Vexlar pulled Jake toward the command center. "We have never seen ships like these before. They are broadcasting threats." They reached the command center where the grand speaker floated above a tactical display. Council members crowded around looking at the screen with expressions of horror. Jake pushed forward to see what they were seeing. 30 massive warships moved toward the station in perfect formation. Their design was brutal and efficient. All weapons and armor with no wasted space. They looked like they had been built for one purpose only: destruction. The grand speaker activated the communication channel. A face appeared on the screen. The creature was reptilian with scales that looked like metal. Its eyes were cold and calculating. Rows of teeth filled its mouth. When it spoke, the translation carried contempt and amusement. "Coalition species. We are the Kresh Dominion. You will surrender this station and submit to our authority. Resistance is futile." The grand speaker's light flickered with obvious distress. "We do not recognize your claim. The coalition seeks peaceful resolution. We do not wish for conflict." The Kresh commander laughed. It was a harsh sound that made several council members flinch. "Peace is irrelevant. We have observed your coalition for many generations. You are weak. Herbivores and prey species pretending at strength. Your time ends today. We have defenses." The grand speaker tried to sound confident, but Jake heard the fear underneath. "We have ships and weapons. We can protect ourselves. Your defenses were designed by species that evolved to flee from danger and not face it." The Kresh bared all its teeth in what might have been a smile. "You have no true predators in your coalition. No one who understands real warfare. You will fall quickly and we will take everything you have built." The transmission ended. The Kresh fleet continued its approach. The grand speaker immediately began issuing orders. All coalition ships were to form defensive positions. All station weapons were to be armed. All civilians were to move to the protected core sections. Jake watched the tactical display as coalition ships moved into formation. There were more coalition vessels than Kresh ships. But even Jake, who had no military space combat experience, could see the difference. The coalition ships moved hesitantly. They formed neat, organized lines like they were performing a drill. They waited for orders from Central Command before taking any action. The Kresh ships moved like wolves hunting deer. They spread out and probed for weaknesses. They coordinated without obvious communication. They moved with confidence and purpose. They were predators and they knew their prey was afraid. The first battle began badly. Coalition ships fired their weapons, but their aim was poor. Their timing was off. They bunched together, making themselves easy targets. The Kresh ships wove through their formations, striking weak points and retreating before the coalition could respond. Within minutes, 3 coalition ships were destroyed. Their debris scattered across the space near the station. Vexlar stood beside Jake, watching the disaster unfold. His skin had gone almost white with shock. "We are losing. We have more ships. We have good weapons, but we do not know how to use them. We have forgotten how to fight because we have had peace for so long." Jake stared at the tactical display. His mind was racing. He had studied military history as a hobby. Ancient battles, modern warfare, strategy and tactics across human civilization. He understood what he was seeing. The coalition was fighting like frightened animals. The Kresh were fighting like hunters. "Let me help." Jake turned to the grand speaker. "I can coordinate your ships. I understand how predators think because I am one. You are one being." The grand speaker's light pulsed weakly. "How could you make a difference against an entire fleet?" "Because I am a Class-12 predator." Jake moved to an empty tactical station. "The Kresh are dangerous, but they think like every other hunter species. They have patterns, instincts. I can predict what they will do because I would do the same things. Let me show your ships how to fight back." The council members looked at each other. Another coalition ship exploded on the display. More lives lost. More evidence that they could not win this battle with their current tactics. The grand speaker made a decision. Give him access to all ship communications. Let the human try. Jake's hands moved across the controls. He opened channels to every coalition ship in range. His voice went out to captains from dozens of different species. Coalition ships, this is Jake Morrison. I know you can hear me. I know you are afraid. But we can win this fight if you trust me and do exactly what I say. A Kalarian captain's voice came back uncertain and shaking. How can you help us, human? You are not military. You do not know space combat. No. Jake watched the Kresh ships moving on the display. But I know how to hunt. And right now the Kresh think you are prey. We are going to show them they are wrong. We are going to teach them that even prey can have teeth when they decide to fight back. He studied the enemy formation and began giving orders. Break your neat formations immediately. Spread out. Make them chase you. Use your speed advantages. Stop clustering together where they can hit multiple ships at once. The coalition ships hesitated. Breaking formation violated every protocol they had. It went against their training and instincts. But they were desperate. Slowly they began to scatter. The Kresh adjusted, but their coordination faltered slightly. They were used to prey that stayed grouped together in fear. Good. Jake's voice was calm and steady. Now we use their instincts against them. Jake studied the tactical display like a hunter reading tracks. The Kresh ships moved with purpose but also with predictable patterns. Alpha predators leading from the front. Beta ships supporting from the flanks. Younger, less experienced ships hanging back to learn. It was pack behavior. It was something Jake understood at a deep level because humans had once hunted the same way. Ships Falcon 9 and Eagle 3, you are the fastest in the fleet. Jake's voice was steady and commanding. I need you to act like wounded prey. Run toward the asteroid field at coordinates I'm sending now. Make it look like you are fleeing in panic. But that violates all defensive protocols. The captain of Falcon 9 sounded horrified. Trust me. Jake watched 3 Kresh ships break formation to pursue. The moment they enter the asteroid field, turn hard and fire everything at the lead ship. The others will bunch up behind trying to avoid the asteroids. Ships Nova 7 and Dawn 4, you are hiding in the field waiting. When the Kresh bunch up, you attack from above and below. The plan unfolded exactly as Jake predicted. The 2 coalition ships ran and the Kresh took the bait. Predators could not resist chasing fleeing prey. It was in their nature. When the lead Kresh ship entered the asteroid field, the coalition ship spun around and opened fire. The Kresh ship's shields flared under the barrage. The ships behind it collided as they tried to stop suddenly in the narrow space. Then the ambush ships appeared from hiding and attacked from unexpected angles. One Kresh ship exploded. Another took critical damage and began to drift. The third retreated badly damaged. The coalition ships had won their first engagement. A cheer went up in the command center. Jake allowed himself a small smile but kept his focus on the display. That was one small victory. The main Kresh fleet was still coming and they would adjust their tactics now. All ships listened carefully. Jake opened channels to the entire coalition fleet. You just learned something important. The Kresh are predators, but that means they have predictable behaviors. They chase, they hunt, they follow instincts. We can use those instincts as weapons against them. Over the next hour, Jake transformed the coalition defense. He taught them ambush tactics, how to use terrain to their advantage, how to make themselves look weak to draw enemies into traps, how to coordinate without clustering, how to think like a pack while acting independently. The Kresh found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. Prey that fought like predators, ships that ran but then turned to strike, formations that seemed chaotic but were actually carefully coordinated. Every time they thought they had an advantage, it turned into a trap. But there were still too many Kresh ships. Despite Jake's tactics, the coalition was being slowly overwhelmed. Ships were being destroyed faster than they could regroup. The station's shields were failing under sustained bombardment. They needed something more than tactics. They needed a symbol. They needed someone to show the coalition forces that predators could be beaten. Jake turned to Vexillor. I need a ship. Something fast with weapons. The best you have, you cannot be serious. Vexillor's skin flashed with alarm. You want to go out there yourself. Your people need to see that a Class 12 predator fights for them, not against them. Jake was already moving toward the docking bay. They need to see that we can win. The Grand Speaker's light pulsed. We have a prototype scout ship, the Nightshade. It was designed for speed and has experimental weapons, but you have never piloted a ship like this? I am a test pilot. Jake grinned, and several aliens nearby stepped back from the expression. I have flown everything Earth has to offer. How different can this be? Very different. But the Grand Speaker gave authorization. Go human, Jake. Show them what a Class 12 predator can do when it chooses to protect instead of destroy. Jake reached the nightshade and climbed into the cockpit. The controls were alien but intuitive. He ran through the startup sequence and felt the ship come alive around him. The engines hummed with barely contained power. The weapon system showed green across the board. This was a hunter's ship, built for speed and lethality. He launched from the station and immediately felt at home. Three-dimensional combat was more natural than atmospheric flying. No gravity to fight. No air resistance. Just pure motion and reaction. The nightshade responded to his commands like it was reading his thoughts. Jake targeted the Kresh flagship, the massive dreadnought that led the enemy fleet. If he could hurt it, the others might lose confidence. He accelerated to full speed and came in at an angle the Kresh would not expect. Below their firing solutions, inside their defensive perimeter before they realized he was there, he opened fire with everything. The experimental weapons tore into the flagship's shields, energy blasts and projectiles and things Jake did not have names for. The shields held, but they flickered under the assault. Jake looped around for another pass, single small craft attacking the flagship. A Kresh voice came over the intercepted communications. Ignore it. Continue the assault on the station. Jake made another attack run. This time he targeted the shield generators directly. His weapons found weak points and exploited them. The shields failed in one section and Jake's fire raked across the hull. Armor-plated, designed to withstand capital ship weapons, proved vulnerable to concentrated fire on a single spot. Destroy that ship. The Kresh commander's voice carried anger now. All fighters engage. 5 Kresh fighters broke from the fleet to chase Jake. He led them away from the main battle and into the debris field left by destroyed ships. The fighters followed with confidence. They were experienced pilots in superior craft. One small human should be easy prey. Jake proved them wrong. He used every trick he knew and several he invented on the spot, spinning behind cover, using destroyed ship hulls as shields. Sudden acceleration followed by equally sudden stops that left the Kresh overshooting their targets. He picked them off one at a time. Patient, methodical, efficient. The coalition forces watched in amazement. The human was fighting an entire enemy squadron alone and winning. Ships that had been retreating suddenly found courage. If one human could face 5 enemies, what could they accomplish together? Jake returned to the flagship and resumed his attack. His shields were down to 30%. His weapons were overheating. But he did not stop. Could not stop. It was not in his nature to quit when something needed to be done. The Kresh commander appeared on an open channel. What kind of creature are you? You should be dead. Your ship is damaged. You are outnumbered. Yet you keep attacking. I am human. Jake fired again. We are Class 12 predators, but we hunt things that need hunting. Right now that is you. Impossible. The Kresh commander's voice held something Jake had not heard before. Uncertainty. Fear. You cannot be more dangerous than us. We are the apex predators of our region. We have conquered 12 systems. Here is the difference between humans and you. Jake targeted the flagship's command bridge. We do not hunt for conquest. We hunt for protection. We fight because someone has to stand between bullies and their victims. We are dangerous, but we choose who that danger serves. He fired everything in one sustained barrage. The Nightshade system screamed warnings about power overload. Jake ignored them. The experimental weapons punched through the weakened shields and tore into the flagship's bridge. Explosions rippled across the command section. The Kresh fleet faltered. Their leader was wounded. Their command structure relied on the Alpha being strong and invincible. Now they saw him bleeding. Their formation broke apart as individual ships hesitated. Jake broadcast on all frequencies. His voice went to every Kresh ship and every coalition vessel. Kresh Dominion, hear me. You came here thinking you found easy prey. You were wrong. The coalition is under human protection now. We are Class 12 predators and we have decided these people are worth defending. Leave now or learn what happens when you threaten our pack. For a long moment, nothing happened. Space itself seemed to hold its breath. Then one Kresh ship turned and jumped to hyperspace. Then another. Then 5 more. The fleet was breaking, running. The predators had become prey and they knew it. The flagship was the last to leave. Limping and damaged, The creche commander sent one final message. We will remember this, human. We will remember that the galaxy has teeth now. Good. Jake guided the smoking nightshade back toward the station. Make sure everyone remembers. Make sure they spread the word. The Coalition is not prey anymore. Coalition ships surrounded him as he approached, not threatening but escorting, honoring. The human had fought for them, had bled for them, had proven that predators could be protectors. Jake docked and climbed out of the nightshade. The ship was a wreck. Scorched hull, burned out systems. It would never fly again, but it had done its job. The docking bay was filled with aliens. Every species. Every role. They had gathered to see the human who had saved them. The grand speaker floated forward. Its light was brighter than Jake had ever seen. You saved us, human Jake. One being against an empire, one predator protecting prey. We understand now what you tried to tell us. You are dangerous, but you are dangerous to the right things. Jake was exhausted. His body ached. His hands still shook from adrenaline, but he smiled. So what happens now? Do you still want to quarantine Earth? The grand speaker pulsed with what might have been laughter. No, human Jake. We want to offer humanity a place in the Coalition, not as members we fear, but